So comparative measuring, using one object or part of an object as a unit of measure to compare against other objects. And the reason I say part of an object is that when you go to do this, if you get into figure drawing, we'll often use the subject's, the measurement of their head in terms of how we measure the rest of the figure. Okay, but in this case, we'll use the pear. We'll stick with the pear. So you can select anything. So let's use the pear. It's a good sort of middle size object in this composition. So all I did, again, if I was using my pencil, I would hold it up. I would line the tip of my pencil to the top of this pear. I would have my arm extended, and my thumb would then align up to the bottom of this pear. And in my hand, I would be holding the unit of measure, which in this case would be the pear height. And what I'm going to do is take that around the rest of this composition and compare it to the other objects that I'm drawing. So I can take my hand, shift it over to the right. I'll keep my thumb in the same spot, and then I can move my arm around and see that the vase is just under twice the pear height, right? So here's the unit of measure, the height of the pear. And then I shifted it over, so this is the same unit of measure, the height of the pear. And if I stack two of those on top of each other, the vase is just under that, right? Right there. You can also turn your unit of measure. If it's a vertical measurement, you can turn it and use it horizontally, right? So unit of measure is still the pear height, but I can turn that to see how it compares to the width of the vase. So the width of the vase is about 1 pear height. Pretty close. I can also measure just that little group of grapes. I can see that the group of grapes is about as wide as the height of the pear. Okay, so let's do some more measuring on this photo. So I'm gonna find just the midpoint of the subject, right? So I'm kind of ignoring the rest of the composition and say, I want to place this dog in a drawing somewhere else, right? I still want to correctly draw her. So I'm gonna focus on just the dog here. So to find the midpoint, I placed a square around all of the widest points, right? So the highest point of her ear, the furthest left point, it's the same down here next to the foot, and then the furthest right point being the tail. And that's how I came up with this square, this rectangle around her. And then all I did was cut this rectangle in half vertically here, and then horizontally here. So that gives me 2 manageable vertical halves, 2 manageable horizontal halves, and a midpoint for her, which I can see is very close to her shoulder here. Okay, and for using level lines, I can see how the different parts of her body line up. So I can see that the bottom part of her ear here that's folded over lines up with the top of this other ear because she's at a little bit of an angle. I can see how her eyes line up. The top of this eye is, if I drew a horizontal line, would be at about the pupil of her other eye. I can see where her chin lines up in relationship to her shoulders. I can see where her ankles line up. Little shift in the feet. Plumb lines, again, these are vertical lines. I can see where everything lines up. I can see that the end of her ear on the left side here lines up with her foot. I can see where the other side of her ear lines up, or where it's meeting her head. Draw it down. It hits the left side of her eye, also at about the armpit. The farthest right tip of her ear lines up with the inner corner of her right eye, hits the nostril, hits her tongue on this right side, where this little line down the middle ends, hits her ankle here. So all of these things are helpful, right? If I were trying to draw her accurately from observation, I could use these vertical and horizontal lines, plumb and level lines, to help me align everything in my drawing. And then to measure everything correctly, we can use comparative measuring again. So I mentioned we'll sometimes use the head of the figure as a unit of measure. It's very common. So I'm going to exclude her ears for this, so I'll do just her head portion, and I'll take it down to where her mouth is open since she's a still photo. That's fine. That'll work for us. You can take that unit of measure and find her entire height from the top of her ear to the lowest part of her foot here within this image. So the unit of measure being her head. It takes 1, 2, and a little bit less than 3/4 of her head, and that gives me her height. So you can break down your unit of measure into halves or quarters if that helps you, which it often does.